Y'all want to know what it's like to walk in to a pro day as a scout? Well, our Rob Rag's going to tell you it's a little bit different than what you're used to. Then what happened up in the Northwest at the pro days, Washington State, and Idaho, and then maybe a little bit about that team that decided to trade away the best receiver in the league. I'm sorry, Kansas City, but we're going to talk about them as well. Welcome to Locked On NFL Draft.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Show. I am your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. And of course, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ryan Tracy. And, every Thursday, we got our guy, Rob Rang, join us. And he, always has his articles for Fox Sports. We're going to talk about a little bit of that later on as it pertains to the Chiefs and their draft plans. But first, our guy, Rob, he's kind of double dipping right now. And he does the media stuff and he covers the Seattle Seahawks, but he's also doing some scouting for teams north of the border, the BC Lions. Are we able to say that?
Yeah. No.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah.
I'm very proud to say it. Thank you. Back at Las Vegas, the East West Shrine Bowl, I officially agreed to become a West Coast scout for the BC Lions. And
nice.
I got the hat right here. Some of you guys have seen it in the past, had a few questions about why that hat was up here. And so, this past couple of days, guys, I had the opportunity to go and evaluate some of the prospects at Washington State University, the very first pro day that I got to wear that BC Lions polo on my chest and walk into that. And that to me was one of the most fascinating things. And, I've been fortunate enough to go to, dozens of pro days over the years as a member of the media. I going all the way back to guys like Andrew Luck and Sam Bradford and Jake Locker. As a member of the media, basically we were told this is what time that you should arrive to the pro day, and this is what you can watch and what you cannot. And if you were lucky, then you might get some of the other numbers that were measured before the media was allowed in. The media and all the different pro days that I've gone to, we've been able to watch players on the field, watch the quarterbacks throw the football, for example, watch the 40-yard dashes, but never be able to watch the bench presses, never be able to watch, just the measurements of the hand and the arm length and the wingspan, really to see the players kind of converse with each other, just to see them as men. And that to me is a huge part of the evaluation process. Who is the guy who's just going to shuck off his sweatshirt and work out because he's that good of an athlete? And who's the guy who's there an hour early warming up and is competing against everybody and is really, rah-rahing all of his teammates because this is his last opportunity. And so to me, that was a fascinating, just process that I got to enjoy here at Washington State, the University of Idaho, which the Moscow campus is just about a 10, 15-minute drive from Pullman, the Washington State campus, and then traveling back to the University of Washington in Seattle. And that's one of the things that was so exciting about it, guys, is not only did I get to get a little bit more perspective and just kind of see how that worked out, but, oh, by the way, the state of Washington has a lot of really good football players this year. So, again, that's one of the things I'm kind of eager to break down a little bit is where we might see some of these three corners, Jaylen Watson from Washington State, Trent McDuffie, and Kyler Gordon from the University of Washington, a lot more buzz. But I think that when it's all said and done, we might be seeing all three of these cornerbacks wind up going within the first 64 selections of this year's draft class.
It's funny to hear your perspective on all of this because the BC Lions actually offered me multiple contracts. But first, the first time they actually did not offer me a contract, they were one of the first team to kind of claim my rights. It was some kind of like weird thing. It was when I was coming over. I was in the Arena League. I had a really good rookie year. And BC Lions were like, all right, we claim you or something. And they were like, so I wasn't allowed to go to any other team. And they were like, all right, we'll bring you to like whatever workout you want to go to so we can get numbers on you and things like that, because I skipped my pro day in college and went straight to the AFL. Well, it turned out that I wasn't able to go to the CFL because out of nowhere, 10 NFL teams called. And I ended up having some workouts. Obviously, I signed with the New York Jets. And it was really interesting because after I was released for the final time from the New York Jets, instead of me having to go to a workout so the CFL can get numbers on me, they just flat out offered me contracts. Hey, came from the Jets, we'll take you. And I'm like, no, I want to go to the Arena League first because, sometimes in the CFL, if you go up there, you have to spend a year or two. And we've seen some prospects kind of go up there, whether maybe they have a short stint in the NFL, then they'll go into the CFL, then they come back. But you have to do like 2 years up there. And I would have had to do 2 years. And at that time, I was starting to get a little bit older. So I decided to go to the AFL, and then I ended up balling out. I was actually the number 1 overall pick in the AFL expansion draft. And I had 11 interceptions that year. So I balled out.
Ooh.
CFL came calling again. All right, Croc, like we're going to give you more money. And I ended up just staying in the AFL, getting paid good money there. But I had an experience with BC Lions specifically.
Which is awesome, and it just kind of is a testament to the fact that BC Lions are pretty damn good talent evaluators, guys. Clearly here, and that is one of the fascinating things, and it certainly has been an adjustment for me. I mean, it's just a completely different game. I mean, I think if you watch the CFL, you'll see that the defensive line is a yard off of the ball. And so they get a little bit of, an advantage to be able to rush the quarterback. You're not going to be looking for some of those big guys, those run stuffers that you see in the NFL. It is very much a more up-tempo passing. The field is longer. The hashes are wider. The fact that you can see receivers can be in motion, all these different things. It's an exciting brand of football. I'm very proud and honored to be part of the BC Lions. But again, going kind of back to just this whole idea of just how different the experience is from evaluating a pro day from a media perspective and from a scout's perspective. Again, guys, you walk into the facility. And by the way, Washington State, University of Washington, University of Idaho were all spectacular. And just the way that they treated scouts, it was just a first-class run, facilities in every way. But it was just fascinating to me that you walked in and you got a packet handed to you that had so much information about these individual players. You did have the access to be able to just kind of be on the field and converse with the players, converse with the agents. In the media perspective, when I've gone to pro days, we've always been kind of sectioned off. It's like the way that it used to be at the Senior Bowl. We used to be able to just kind of wander around. I mean, I remember so many conversations I had with players back in the day. This is pre 9/11. I'm pretty gray in the temples, guys. I'm dating myself a little bit here, but you had those opportunities to really be able to evaluate these players as players and these men as men. And that is one of the lost arts of all of this, is that we sometimes focus so much on 40-yard dash times, but we forget who these players are. You see the people who came to the pro day with them, whether it be their parents, whether it be their girlfriends, whatever the case might be, but still you see them as young men who are right on the precipice of achieving their biggest dreams. And so it really was an awesome opportunity to kind of really see who these players are. And I'm rooting all of them on because, again, whether it be in the AFL, the CFL, the USFL, or the NFL, all of these guys are about ready to achieve their greatest of dreams. And again, it's an exciting time of year.
I think it really illustrates the difference in what we all go through, too. For all of you listening, I know you're like, hey, I'd like to be down on the field, Rob, and be able to talk to the agents. But it's difficult. This job is difficult because we all analyze from the outside because we don't have that access. And that's why this time of year especially, I think this is where we see the drift. And to bring it back for what you guys get out of this is that, yes, we're all trying to estimate, but this is why the media draft boards are different than the team's draft boards, because it's just not the same kind of access. So keep that.
That's a great point. And again, all the access that the scouts have, like Rob Ring just said, and Ryan Tracy, how there's sometimes a discrepancy between, draft Twitter, so the media, and what the NFL scouts are thinking. We are going to find out what our scout here, Rob Ring, saw at those pro days between the two Washington schools and a guy at Idaho that you all might need to know about as well. But first, going to talk to you a little bit about BetOnline. And after months of playing college basketball, they've determined the top teams that are ready to play and contend for the national championship. All right, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info, from the latest odds, contests, and player props. You name it, they got it. BetOnline remains the spot for all the latest developments, including podcasts and reviews for all the leagues this season. And it's not just basketball. Obviously, it's football as well. That's why we talk about it on this podcast. All right. All your football needs, draft props, all that good stuff, they got it. And it doesn't just stop there. Matter of fact, if you are thinking about a good prop, they recently had the over-under on Kyle Hamilton, where he'll be drafted at 6.5. I don't know if it's still there, but if it is, you need to pound the over on that one. I don't know if he's going top 10. All right. They have live betting, and they also have favorite Vegas casino games, so you can play all those games and more. Head over right now to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action at BetOnline, where the game starts. I want to thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. And for your second listen, make sure you check out Locked On 49ers with myself and Brian Peacock, and Locked On Chiefs with our guy Ryan Tracy. And of course, man, we got Rob Rang on today. He is one of the hosts of Locked On Seahawks. It's free and available wherever you listen to your podcast. All right, Rob. So there are some polarizing names right there. And you talked about how, hey, you went and saw some prospects at Washington. I think the names that come to mind first is those cornerbacks. You got Trent McDuffie. You got Kyler Gordon. All right. When you watch those guys work out, and I don't know how much you can say because, you're scouting for BC Lions, but what were some of the thoughts just from a movement skill standpoint? Did one guy stand out more than the other? Because there are some guys that are higher on McDuffie and there are other guys that are higher on Gordon. But what were your thoughts on the two guys?
Well, I am higher on Trent McDuffie. I just think that he is the smoother, more polished player. I think that he is able to come in and make an immediate impact. At the same time, it was really fascinating to kind of evaluate Kyler Gordon throughout that pro day experience. I just mentioned here a couple of moments ago about what a different perspective you get when you're able to go in there as a pro scout rather than as a member of the media. One of the very first people who I saw when I first walked in the University of Washington facility was Kyler Gordon. Walked in, the big smile on his face. He's hugging people, the support staff, not just the coaches and things like that. You just really got a bit of a peek behind the scenes about who he is as a human being. And that it just made you feel like this is a guy that you could kind of trust, even though he's a young player. That's always, a little bit of a concern there, but he just looked mature. He looked fun loving. And then we had talked about before that he was expected to work out exceptionally well at the combine. And ran in the low 4.5s, a good solid 40-yard dash time, but at the same time, not in the exceptional type of workout that a lot of people were talking about. And then he goes to the pro day and was dynamic. I mean, 39-inch vertical jump, I believe. I think that if he wasn't 11 foot in the broad, he was very, very close to it. But to me, what was the most exciting thing about it? And again, this is the perspective that I had from being there and not just being a member of the media, literally 200 yards away, the way that I have for so many times. I've gone to University of Washington Pro Days. This is one of the media credentials I had from the year that John Ross was, of course, a top 10 selection. Kyler Gordon had to run the shuttle time a couple of different times. He every time he would do the shuttle drill and he'd raise his hand up, and so he'd have to do it again. And he looked back at all the scouts and said, "Don't worry." And this was the short shuttle. He said, "Don't worry, I'll give this one under 4 seconds as well." And that, a short shuttle in under 4 seconds is lightning. And that the confidence and the smile. I mean, it wasn't cocky. It was confident. It was fun. I mean, it was just like, okay, this is a dynamic athlete we're talking about here, a confident athlete. It was, you kind of warmed up to him. You should have seen the different scouts who were there, and there were a number of them from, lots of, I can't tell you which teams that were actually there, but it was fascinating to just kind of see the guys just kind of wink at each other. Like they had seen that type of behavior from before from the elite athletes of the world. And you could just see that they were like kind of checking their box. Like, all right, this guy has what we're looking for. So to me, again, that was one of the fascinating things about it. And again, I think that Kyler Gordon perhaps pushed himself into that first round conversation. If not, he certainly is going to go early in the second round. I expect Trent McDuffie to wind up going in the first round as well, perhaps even very, very early, top half of the first round. And then Jaylen Watson from Washington State doesn't give a lot of buzz, even though he was invited to the Senior Bowl, had a strong week of practice there, worked out very well at the Combine as well, and then just did it all over again at his pro day. Again, that was one of the reasons why I was excited to go to these workouts, guys. It wasn't just that they're locally, close to me. It's the fact that they actually are loaded with defensive backs this year in a draft class that I think is one of the better at cornerback that we've seen in a long, long time.
That volume just coming out of there, knowing that you face in playing in the Pac-12 a lot of varied offenses. I think that says a lot. We all know the drama that's gone on at UW with Jimmy Lake, but he's consistently produced DBs. That is without argument. So to have that kind of confirmation back at the pro day, that's really what the pro day is for, in my opinion. Everybody who should go to the combine has a chance to perform apples to apples against the best competition. You have to have that fallback. And so I'm very intrigued to see that Gordon bounces back. But I actually had Watson not like, I want to say around 70. Bouncing him into the second round seems like a certainty at this point. And when you take a look, and having been able to see them in the same weekend, in terms of just the overall ability to move and attack the ball in the air and track with receivers, maybe it's not as disparate a grade as I probably currently have. Where would you put him in consideration with the two UW corners?
Well, again, I think that McDuffie is just the smoothest of them. Gordon, I think, is close and is kind of creeping up. I mean, the change of direction, the ability to explode downhill on the ball from Gordon that I saw, it was the second best cornerback workout I've ever seen. The only one who's better than that is the multiple Pro Bowler Marcus Peters, also at the University of Washington. Spectacular workouts. And I've gone, not to toot my own horn, I've gone to a lot of pro days over the years, not just the ones in this state, but just phenomenal workout. And so I do think that they're in that mix. Where I really like Jaylen Watson is I think that he is a better, more physical tackler in run support than either of the two UW kids. And Trent McDuffie especially, I just love how reliable he is. I never saw him miss a single open field tackle. I watched him play all four special teams units throughout his entire college career. I think that he is as close to a relatively sure thing. I hate using that term, but still, I think that he is a very, very safe player. A guy who's going to go in the first round. I think that Kyler Gordon's upside just screams a guy who is here and he's going to be here in another year or so. But Jaylen Watson, to me, is a guy that a lot of people nationally are kind of sleeping on. And I get it. We haven't seen a quality defensive back come out of Washington State very often. I mean, Marcus Trufant years ago was a first-round selection by Seattle. But, other than that, you're talking about some safeties, Dayon Buchanan, Lamont Thompson, those kind of guys that just, aren't corners. But Jaylen Watson was originally a USC guy who wound up, just to do what, regardless of whatever reason it was, wound up going JUCO route to Washington State, had 2 incredible years there. Again, as I mentioned, went to the Mobile, Alabama, where he was really good. And I just think people are kind of sleeping on him. I mean, 6'2", 200 pounds, running in the low 4.5s, then goes to his pro day. And very similar numbers as Kyler Gordon in terms of the explosiveness in the leaps, never dropped the ball during his workout. And just, I mentioned this before, Kyler Gordon and the kind of the confidence with the other athletes there or the confidence with the scouts there. It was awesome to see the way that Jaylen Watson, as a JUCO, was as just ecstatic for the rest of his teammates to get the opportunity to have their moment on the stage. The way that he cheered he was the loudest guy in Pullman. And to me, that kind of just speaks to who he is as a person. And, I think that the NFL scouts are going to feel the same way. I think that he's going to surprise people. I don't know that Locked On Bets has any kind of over-under on his draft, but I would take the over on him because he's going to go earlier than people think.
Well, if they do have bets on him, we got to get those in and go. And we'll do the under on that one. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll blame Rob Rang for that. All right. When we get back, we are going to dive into, the Kansas City Chiefs. They just made a move. They traded away star receiver Tyreek Hill. They've added some guys to maybe replace him, but they have 2 picks at the end of the first round. What do they do with those picks? We'll talk about that coming up. All right, Rob. So you have a new article coming out, and we love when you dive into your articles. This one, you happen to be talking about, a team that's near and dear to this podcast. Our guy Ryan Tracy, a host of Locked On Chiefs. So I can't wait to hear you guys go back and forth on this. But obviously, a huge trade. Kansas City trading away Tyreek Hill. They received 5 picks, including one at the end of the first round. So they have back-to-back picks in the first, and they received a second-round pick and a few other as well. But first, when you hear that this trade happened, what's the first thing that goes through your mind? And then how do you think this impacts Patrick Mahomes?
Well, at least from my perspective, it was very similar as when I heard that Seattle actually traded away Russell Wilson. Is what I heard that the Packers actually traded away Devontae Adams. Like, are you kidding me? This guy's a really good football player. Those don't grow on trees. Keep your really good football players. But at the same time, as was the case with all 3 of the players we just mentioned, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Russell Wilson, I think the numbers got to be so much that the team that did own their rights got a heck of a trade offer and had to consider, hey, maybe if we want to actually compete, not just win fantasy football titles and all that kind of stuff, not just make the fans in the stands happy wearing the jerseys and all that. If we're looking for Lombardi trophies, then we have to kind of rethink these things. And I think specifically with the Kansas City Chiefs, and, I'm going to bow to Ryan's expertise on this matter, but to me, one of the things I go back to is Andy Reid, and not just his time in Kansas City, but previously at the Philadelphia Eagles. And while they were willing to invest an occasional early draft pick in wide receivers, I just remember the belief being that Andy Reid's offense is very, very difficult for wide receivers. And so if you are going to be investing an early draft pick in a wide receiver, then, for the Chiefs' perspective, it might take some time. So to me, this is a testament to Patrick Mahomes' talent. It's a testament to the fact that the Chiefs already have plenty of talent at the wide receiver position, and that all of those millions and millions of dollars that they were going to give to Tyreek Hill, who, in my opinion, is the most gifted receiver in the NFL. With all due respect to Adams, DK Metcalf, and lots of other receivers out there, Tyreek is he's a freak. That's the name. At the same time, I also think that it made a lot of financial and just competitive sense for Kansas City to use those dollars elsewhere. And I love the way that this draft class sets up for Brett Veach to be able to kind of move all around, do whatever he wants to do. I think the Chiefs need more than just another receiver to replace Tyreek Hill. I think they need some help on the defensive line. I think they need some help at cornerback. And so I think that this the draft haul they got in that trade allows them to do exactly that.
Yeah, it's funny. Brett Veach has shown himself to believe in a tenet that I've long held, that the draft is about the top 100. It's nice to find gems. The top 100 is where you got to make your roster work. And by making that trade, 6 top 100 picks right now. I'm not sure that they're going to take all 6, but that's where they're at right now. The question becomes is vaulting yourself up. And I truly feel after the updates on Jameson Williams' knee that you got to get in the top 12 if you want to get him. I don't know that giving up both first-round picks for Jameson Williams, like you said, to come into an offense that is very heady. In Andy Reid's offense, it's nearly as much about what's between your ears as what's in your legs and your hands. I mean, it is that complex. McCall Hardman's had a difficult time transitioning to that, where he has not made the adaptation to be a 3-position player. So that's part of the evaluation too. But I think there is so much talent at the defensive end front as well that maybe a trade-up involves that. There's also a severe possibility that nobody goes anywhere, and you're sitting at 29 and 30 with an opportunity to maybe split, maybe move back out of 30 a little bit and get a Kyler Gordon maybe, and pick somebody up that doesn't have to be at the top.
Well, I was going to ask too, because I know a lot of people, as soon as you see Tyreek Hill get traded, you're thinking receiver. But they did sign Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They did sign Juju Smith-Schuster. They do have Mecole Hardman, like you said. It's taking them a little while to kind of get going. But, I mean, those are 3 legit pass catchers, that you could utilize in 3 different ways. And then, by the way, you got Travis Kelce, arguably the best tight end in the NFL. All right, so still got 4 pass catchers. I don't know how much of it. I mean, obviously Tyreek Hill, there's going to be some type of drop-off because he is just so special and he affects the game in so many ways. But I don't know how much of a dip we'll see in the production from the passing game. But like you said, an area where Chiefs can definitely improve. You got to get better at edge rusher position. You got to get better at the cornerback position. It's as simple as maybe them double dipping at those positions right there at the end of the first round, taking the edge rusher, taking the cornerback. And if so, who do you foresee them potentially taking, Ryan?
Oh, I like the combination now that you talk about it, Boye Mafe and Kyler Gordon. That seems pretty athletic to me. I think I would take that. I can also see some moving around as well. There's a possibility because of Jameson's recovery and because of what we're seeing from others. Could Jahan Dotson make it to 29? I think that's a possibility at this point.
So you think they'll go Jahan Dotson with the other guys that they just signed?
I think he may be the top guy on their board because of what we've seen him do at Penn State and be able to move into more than one position, be able to adapt to that offense. I think there's a lot of intrigue there because at the end of the day, Andy Reid is an offensive coach. He needs to have the backbone, the support of the defense, but he wants to put up points. So I will not put anything out. It's not like they're going to go draft an offensive tackle. They do have questions about the right tackle in terms of the health of Lucas Niang. So that is something that maybe Abraham Lucas can be somebody they look at later in the draft, a guy we didn't get to today at Wazoo, but it is not set in stone. That's Brett Veach's philosophy. He's going to do everything he can now, either maybe a trade for an end or a wide receiver or a corner. Right now, they're working on the phones, evidently, to not have to go do X thing at X pick. And then all holds are off. You don't know what he's going to do.
Well, and that's the thing is he has that flexibility now. And as you talked about, they basically have 6 picks within the top 100. I think it's like that 6th pick is 103 or 104. Yeah. It's right there, but we're splitting hairs here. I think they had 2 picks in the top 100 last year. They had 3 picks in the top 100 each of the previous years, like as is normal. You normally have a first, second, third round pick. To have double that and to have the quarterback already in place, to have as much talent as they have throughout the rest of their roster. I mean, my goodness, Brett Veach has got to be just looking at this draft class, which I think is an exceptionally gifted one. And the numbers bear it out. Obviously, with the pandemic, then there's a lot of guys who decide to come back for an extra year. This is a bloated class. There's more talent available this year than there's ever been, at least arguably. And so to have 6 picks within the top 100 roughly gives the Kansas City Chiefs an awful lot of power, just like it gives the Philadelphia Eagles with their 3 first-round picks an awful lot of power. To me, that's one of the most fascinating things about this draft class, guys. And again, Eric mentioned it at the top. I mean, you make the trade of Tyreek Hill, there's going to be a lot of Chiefs fans out there who are just clamoring, who's the wide receiver who is going to take Tyreek Hill's place? There's not one. He's that gifted. There's no player, individual rookie who is going to come in and just, match what Tyreek Hill can do. I mean, God, are you kidding me? But at the same time, Andy Reid is so good, and they already have so much talent. Patrick Mahomes is that good. Travis Kelce is that good that you don't need one wide receiver to play that role. I mean, MVS is going to play that deep ball role. The same thing with Hardman. They can play some of those roles. But yeah, if you get a guy who is as smart and as fast as a Jahan Dotson, you also are able to address a little bit more of a concern among the edge rusher. Frank Clark getting a little bit older. Chris Jones, a terrific football player that he is, but get yourself another defensive tackle to be able to kind of duplicate that. And Javarius West, the cornerback, to me, that was one of the biggest losses for Kansas City. So that's why I do expect a cornerback to be very high on their wish list, especially the arms race that is the AFC West. So all of those things, I just really like the move from the Chiefs perspective. I don't like it if I was a Chiefs fan, I would be disappointed because you're losing a dynamic player. But if you're looking for Super Bowls, I think that this trade actually puts them in a better position to compete for a Super Bowl next year and for the next 4 or 5 years. And that really is the end game here.
Absolutely. And Croc, you tell me if for those 3 needs, has there been a better draft class in the last 5 years? If you need edge, wide receiver, and corner, I mean, it's a pretty good set.
This would definitely be a strong class for those 3 positions. And starting tomorrow, we're going to have 3 teams on the clock: the New York Giants, the Carolina Panthers, and then the New York Giants again. We'll see what those teams need as well and address that. It was fun talking about Kansas City Chiefs, and I can't wait to read Rob Rang's article on, exactly how he feels about that and kind of lay it all out for us, especially those guys at the pro days of Washington. One guy we didn't talk about is that tight end that they have, Cade Otton. We didn't get to talk about him much. We didn't talk about the Idaho Noah Ellis, but we will get to those guys and much more. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, of course, Locked On Chiefs with with Ryan Tracy, Locked On 49ers with myself and Brian Peacock. But that's going to do it for this episode. We'll see y'all tomorrow for more mock draft. 3 teams on the clock. Let's go. We're out. Peace.